Hello and welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. A couple of weeks ago, I had a expert on the show. His name is Lawrence Husick, and we talked about cybercrime, cyber war, cyber this and that, cyber hacking. We talked about how pervasive it is, how insidious it is. We talked about the attempts at the international level as well as local levels to try to get a handle on this phenomenon that's developing and taking over the globe. As a result of that, which was all scary stuff, as a result of those two programs, we did two 30-minute programs because it was just fascinating, and Lawrence is an expert in the area, I thought it would be instructive to see if we could bring that discussion down to the local level. And so I contacted the Radnor Police and asked if they had someone who spent his or her time, part of his or her time, addressing this issue of cybercrime, abuse of computers, cell phones, smartphones, and so on. And they said, yep, we got somebody, and his name is Detective Schreiber. So with me this morning, today, for this program, is Detective Schreiber. Thanks very much for being here. I appreciate it. And taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm sure you are all very busy, regrettably, running after bad people doing bad things. Yep. As we sometimes do, I think it would be instructive before we get into the subject. Tell us who you are, where you came from, how long you've been on the force, what you do now. What's your average day like?
All right, well, I'm TJ Schreiber. I'm a detective with Radnor. I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia and moved to Bucks County. I graduated from William Tennant High School in Warminster. I went to Westchester University. I have a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. I started my law enforcement career just before 9/11 as a summer officer in North Wildwood Police down the shore.
That must have been an experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting summer. Saw some things. Saw some things there that took me years here in Radnor to see. I was hired in October of 2001, about a month after 9/11.
Yeah.
I've been on 12 years, and I made detective last year after about 11 years on the street. So Monday through Friday now, primarily, is my set schedule. However, get called in the middle of the night a lot of times and things like that. So.
I mentioned to you when you arrived at the studio, you weren't dressed the way I thought. I thought I would see you in a policeman's uniform.
Right.
That is your uniform as, as a detective.
Yes, it is. We handle investigations where sometimes we don't want to advertise that we're the police. We try to blend in a little bit more. Right. Things like that. Some more high-profile things that sometimes you don't always want a uniform showing up.
Detective, the topic is cyber crime. We'll use that as the broad definition, cybercrime in all of its iterations. And my interest in having you here today was to share with us what you and your colleagues in the department and at the county level, since you have such a close relationship with the Delaware County Police, see developing in our community, how it's being manifested, what kinds of crimes are you seeing, what's the incidence of these crimes? What trends do you see developing, if any? And then we'll talk about how ordinary people like myself, what we should be doing not only for ourselves but for our children and grandchildren to try to set up some defenses against this terrible, terrible phenomenon that's developing. So let's start with how does the department define a cyber crime? Okay,
cybercrime for us is basically any commission of a crime that involves a computer, whether it's a laptop, a tablet, and a majority of cases we have a smartphone. They're all considered computers, so commission of any crime involving that would be considered cybercrime. Now there's other things where you see a majority of it is credit card fraud online, people's accounts getting hacked, and that's a large amount of it. However, it can go to harassment and stalking. It can go to cyberbullying, and you see a lot with the kids with online chatting and things like that. That can turn, there's predators out there and things like that. So it's a large realm of things, and we handle a lot of it.
Is it cyclical? Do you see peaks and valleys of these kinds of crimes throughout a 12-month period?
Yeah, to be honest with you, in the school year, we're obviously busier because kids are in school. They're chatting with each other. Summertime, you have a little bit of a lull. But once September kicks up and you got the colleges are back, we have 3 major colleges here, schools are back, it'll peak. And then you see a lot around the holidays, around Christmas time, and that's with all crime, but it's especially with this because people are hard up for money.
Mostly credit cards.
Credit card stuff, it spikes December.
Right.
Yeah, because people need money, and people are spending more in December. So, it's a little bit, maybe it flies, goes down, trickles down to the security company of the credit card. They're busier as well.
Yeah.
So there's peaks and valleys. I would agree with that.
Let's talk about the different types of cybercrime and where you see the greatest incidence of different crimes. First, let's start with, I think you mentioned before the camera went on, since January you have on the books, the department has on the books, how many cases involving cybercrime?
I actually pulled the numbers this morning. We don't code it cybercrime, it's coded fraud. It's called a UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting. 26 cases right now of fraud active. Now that number's small because there might be incidents to say police information and someone might have got a hold of somebody. So that's what we have right now.
These are open cases?
Open cases since January 1st, 26.
Is that a big number?
I would say, but I'd probably say it's the tip of the iceberg. That number's probably larger.
Really?
But from an accounting standpoint, we don't just say, oh, that's cybercrime. I mean, if you look at...
Plus the number of unreported cases.
Oh, well, yeah, sure, a lot.
Now, why would someone not report
well, you know what it is?
fraud or cybercrime?
Well, let's just say, and I could speak personally because I have had my own credit card hacked online. The banks become the victim. So let's just say, I could speak personally, someone was charging my card online, $15 here or there, went to use my card and it didn't work, got a hold of my credit card company, it was actually through my credit union, and they made me whole. And the bank will make you whole, and they become the victim, whether it's a couple $100 or a couple thousand. And I'll be honest with you, the smaller the amount, the bank's not going to investigate that.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to actually, the customer, they're going to get their account reimbursed. They're going to give you a new card. And what are they going to do? They're going to pay an investigator to track a guy down for a couple $100. So
let me tell you something you may not know, because I just learned this recently. Did you know that if I'm a small business person in Radnor Township or any place else, and I've got a savings account or a checking account, and let's say I've got $5,000 in it, or $10,000, small business person, just enough to cover expenses on a month-to-month basis or whatever. If I'm hacked, I'm out. It's not covered by FDIC. It's not covered by the bank. Insurance doesn't cover it unless I buy an expensive cyber policy with a rider. But this is a gap that nobody's been paying attention to until quite recently.
Right.
And I wonder how many of our viewers know that. If you own a small business and you have a savings account or a checking account and you're hacked, you're not covered. The bank does not have to cover it. It may, because of the relationship you have with them and so on, but they don't have to, not legally. FDIC doesn't cover it. And unless you have an expensive, relatively expensive cyber insurance policy, you're not covered. You're not indemnified.
I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't either. And when the person who is an entrepreneur and therefore always looking for niche opportunities, when he told me about that, I said, you're crazy. It can't be true. He said, look, we've researched this all over the country, and I'm telling you it's true. So I called my insurance carrier, and I said, what I was just told, and I have a small business, is that true? And he said, let me check with our underwriters. He came back and he said, he's absolutely right. So business people in Radnor Township, business people, small business people, savings account or checking account, if they're hacked, they have no recourse.
Wow.
That's a bit of information I think that we should try to get out there, so they can do something about it. He'd be even more diligent about protecting that asset. So much for that. You were saying that the incidents and trend lines are going up.
Yes.
You said that this kind of crime is cyclical, more cyclical, when kids are back to school and at Christmas time and so on, which is understandable. I guess I'm most concerned about children who are victimized by this, predators on the internet.
Right.
Can you comment on that and the extent to which you see that developing here?
I can speak the most recent case we had, where we had, there's a website called Omegle, O-M-E-G-L-E. It promotes talking to strangers. You go on this website and that's what it says, talk to strangers. It could be chat-based or video-based. We had a case where a 12-year-old was on there. You could type in an interest. Kid could type in anything, a video game interest or something. Basically, you don't know who's on the other end of that line. It'll say stranger is typing. It has you as a stranger.
Right.
And what these kids will do is they will start talking on there. We went on and pretended to be a 14-year-old girl. Within 3 minutes, we had someone claiming to be a 27-year-old male somewhere in the United States speaking sexual in nature to someone he thought was 14. Now, he doesn't know who's on the other end of the computer.
Yes.
We don't know who's on the other end of the computer.
Right.
But in this particular case, the kid was on there, and then he moved his chat privately to an app-based application this was a Droid, but it's an iPhone Droid, called Kik Messenger, K-I-K Messenger. That's basically an app where your text number is not going to show up. You just basically make up an ID name, like a username, and you can exchange text and photos right on there.
And you can't monitor
We can't monitor it. Well, I did, through investigation, did some background on Kik. That was a Canadian-based organization, not cooperative to law enforcement. I actually had to call the Royal Canadian Police in Ottawa. Went through loopholes and things, and really, it's been turned over to our county level criminal investigative division in Delaware County. But this kid was sending photos back and forth to a kid that appeared, not even a kid, it's an adult, the male was 20.
Now, how does a predator like that get access to that child's email address?
Well,
or do they just send it out randomly?
Well, he'll request it on this Omegle site. So you go on there, age, sex, location. They'll say ASL.
Oh, so the child goes on the site.
Child goes on the site.
How does the child find the site?
Well, they talk about it. Apparently, it's well known. It's a chat app. Now, look, they might be going on to meet friends their own age, and these predators might be pretending, hey, I'm 16. They're not 16. They'll be a 50-year-old on the other end.
Yeah.
When they go private, usually they'll start on Omegle, they'll go private to this app, and then the app's on, like I said, Canadian-based organization that doesn't cooperate with law enforcement. Unfortunately, we have to get search warrants and everything else, and it's tough. It's what we do. We can take over the account, pretend to chat with that person, but short of that person being willing to come into Radnor or into Delaware County per se, that's a small amount of the predators out there that would do that. They're exchanging pictures.
It sounds like, Detective, that in this case, the best defense is a good offense. That is education, setting off the alarm bells all the time, and making people aware of the consequences, potential consequences of innocently engaging in these kinds of conversations or seeking out some of these websites that may sound somewhat tantalizing, but are loaded with all kinds of bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the parents, you have to be on top of your kids. I promote locking your phone with a PIN or a swipe, but the mom and dad should know that.
Yes.
I would frequently check your kids' phones. iPads. A lot of people are just using tablets now. That's a computer.
Yeah.
You got to be on top of it. Go into the history. I mean, there's settings on these things you can set. Obviously, you can block out this site.
Yeah.
But you got to go in and view browsing history, and you hate to say it, you got to be a big brother to monitor this stuff.
It's called surveillance, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought there was a law against that.
Not if it's your own kid.
Yeah.
So
it really is scary. I get, as I'm sure most people do, I get these emails from my phone carrier or one or more banks, some of whom I deal with and some I don't. And they're requesting information, verification of your account, verify your email account, verify your URL, verify your bank account. Right. Send this information immediately or the account will be deactivated and so on. And I always just hit delete.
Right.
I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. They may be legitimate messages, but it's just not worth the risk.
Right. Well, it's nothing you can't do over the phone. Delete is the right thing. There's actually, most email filters will let you report spam, report phishing. We actually refer to that as phishing with a PH. Basically, that's a fake website, and we see a lot of this, the elderly become victim of this. So let's just say it's Wells Fargo Bank. I need your name, social security number, birthday, basically so I can go create an account and use your identity is what they're doing on the other end. But if you look at the URL on the top, the website, so let's say wellsfargo.com. Well, it might be Wells-Fargo.
It could be any bank.
Right, but they'll put the logo on. I know what you mean. I've seen the same emails. They'll put the Wells Fargo. And look, they're hoping, hey, maybe this guy has a Wells Fargo bank. Oh, that must be my bank.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not my bank. I hit delete.
Right.
Believe it or not, and we see it more with the elderly, there's people out there that actually send their information, and they become victims. And a lot of times, I've seen investigations where a lot of these is in the islands, the Caribbean islands, Bahamas.
Yes.
I actually have a case now where a guy it was a scam. Send me $2,500, I'll send you the rest. You've won, or they'll send a check, deposit a bad check, and then they're out the money.
And the other one, Detective, that I get at least once a month is this person who is in some part of the world and they lost their credit card or they were mugged or they were whatever, please send $500. God bless you.
Right.
Yes.
People do it. Be
Why?
surprised.
I can't imagine that.
People do it. We get phone calls. They'll call Jamaican lottery scams. They call them. You've won the lottery. The same thing.
Yes,
Send this,
yes.
You send us your first 500, and I'll send you.
Yeah.
I guess people
There
are
are
gullible.
that many gullible people?
There are. I mean, look. As for many gullible people, there's people that, like you said, this is a prank.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see it.
Unbelievable. And of course, the people on the other side can count on that, and they probably have some sense.
They're putting a couple hundred out a day,
yeah.
and they get a couple, 10 or 20.
Yeah.
That's a win for them.
Yeah. Barnum and Bailey. There's one born every minute, I guess. Yeah.
And to be honest with you, like I said, the victim gets their money. Some of them they don't, but if it's through a bank, they're made whole, and the credit card company's from the victim.
You seem to be saying that it's this problem we're having with cyber crime is mostly prevalent among the young
Right.
and among older people.
Yes.
Older people being most often victims of it.
Right.
And do you see trends developing in both of those categories?
I do. Younger, like you said, it's the two spectrums.
Yes.
Not to say that the middle is not victims.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just can't. You're just going to. There's people out there with programs. They sit online. They're running 16-digit numbers and bank accounts with expiration dates. They get a hit. They might be online buying $15 or something
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, the trends. The elderly seem to be more victims,
Yeah.
and then the young. The younger kids, obviously not credit card victims and things like that, but they're more the predator, things like that. The texting, the sexting back and forth with each other. So yes.
But the appeal to older people, they're using more and more scare tactics. Unless you do this terrible thing's going to happen. An account will be deactivated. You'll lose your Medicare benefits, whatever.
Right.
It's unconscionable, particularly with people already anxious about Medicare and health benefits and so on. But I guess we're going to see more and more of that. Is one, the technology becomes even more pervasive.
Right.
And there are more and more issues that create anxiety among people of all ages.
Right.
So if I get a text message or an email that says, you do this or else,
Right.
you're saying pick up the phone and call somebody. Delete it and pick up the phone and call somebody.
Right. Well, you can start with your local police. We
Okay.
would take that report. An officer would come to your house, or some things like that where you have a lot of printouts. It would be easier to come into the station.
Yeah.
But obviously, delete it. Never send it. Obviously, never send your information online. There's nothing you can't do with your bank over the phone.
If they ask for your social security
No,
number,
no,
that's got to be a dead giveaway. Nobody asks.
needs to know your social security number.
Yeah. Well, nobody needs to know.
Well,
your-
let's just put it this way. Nobody online or
Yes,
anything like that.
yes.
I wouldn't put it anywhere.
Right.
You go buy something on nobody's asking for your social security number. That's a major red flag.
Let's talk about another tip that you mentioned as we were chatting earlier. I'm kind of lazy, and so when I have to create a passcode or a password or whatever, because there are so many of them, I try to come up with one or two that I can use regularly. And your recommendation is, one, don't do that, mix them up, and
Right.
two, change them regularly.
Yes. A lot of common times people use password as their password. Well, that's an easy one. 1, 2, 3, 4 as their PIN for
That's
their
mine.
bank. It's pretty common. You got to change it up. You got to, don't use your address, obviously.
Yeah.
A good password would be a word with a capital letter with at least 4 numbers behind that. And I would change them up. Maybe you get 5 in your bank and change them here or there.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, just common practice, is just go online, or not go online, go with your credit card company. Just ask for a new card every once in a while. Give me a new card, change the numbers up. A lot of people don't want to do this because you have the automatic pay set up.
Sure.
Sometimes
Sure.
they ring your card on a certain date.
Yes.
Well, you're going to have to redo all that. So it can be tedious operation, but it's one thing we would recommend to try to avoid things like this. To try to
Any
avoid
other
becoming a victim.
recommendations? Common sense recommendations like that? Change your passwords, change access to your accounts.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, just change your PIN, change it around. Like I said, get the new number here and there.
I remember I had someone else on the show, and it may have been from the Radnor Police, I don't remember, but the recommendation was when you go out, you leave the house, and I have my wallet now,
Right.
and I've got regrettably, I have all my credit cards in it. So if I lose my wallet or it's stolen, I'm in panic. The recommendation was leave your credit cards at home, except for the ones you think you may need because you're going to a store, the mall, or whatever.
Right.
But otherwise, do not carry your credit cards in your wallet.
Well, I mean, that shortens your chance of becoming a victim or losing it.
Yeah.
To go on that, people go to a restaurant, and I know most people do this. Bill comes in the end of the night, you pay by your credit card, you put it in there.
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend ever letting your credit card out of your sight. There's things called skimmers that they
Yeah,
can put.
yeah.
Now, look, I had a case where people were away on a cruise, and they were out somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Came home later. Within 11 days of coming back, their credit card, and I actually called to investigate, was duplicated, being used somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And the credit card company, it's an actual physical swipe. So if someone
Yes.
else made this credit card, Jane Doe out of Wayne,
Yes.
and they're out in Chicago because it comes from wherever they were eating.
Mm-hmm.
So they can skim the information on it,
Mm-hmm.
basically save it to a little device. You can
Yes.
put that device in an iPhone. You have the entire person's name, 16-digit. So like I said, when you pay cash, obviously it's
Yes.
nice. If you're going to use your card,
Yes.
watch it be rang up. A lot of people are going to say, well, that's...
I was going to say, I can't do that because they take the card, they go back to the register in another part of the restaurant, and they come back with your...
well, it's dangerous. I mean, I know it sounds like nothing, but believe it or not, this case
No,
was...
it's I can understand.
We tracked it down that person was eating somewhere.
Yes.
And it was
and
a
it
skimmer.
wasn't the waiter or waitress, it was somebody else.
It could have been... Well, I don't know. We never found out.
Let's talk about the corollary to that. Again, this new technology just passed by, and they can pick it up electronically. So more people seem to be taking their cards and putting them in these special
Like speed
holders.
pass, things like that.
Well, special holders.
Right.
That apparently can't be penetrated by the electronic. I don't even know what I'm talking about,
Right.
except that it protects the cards.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like an anti-magnetic.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes. I guess, I don't know, is that foolproof?
Well, I mean, I guess it can't be accessed. If some of the credit cards now where you don't even have to swipe them,
Oh.
like the speed pass,
Yeah,
where they'll have it built in, it's a chip.
Yes.
And pay. I guess it blocks that, but
yeah.
I'm not 100% familiar with that.
It's getting so you don't want to leave the house anymore.
I mean, you can't be scared to go out.
No, of course not.
I mean,
And there are precautions you can take and
Right.
should take.
Right.
But it's just changed the quality of life because we're suspicious now of everybody. Anybody could be the enemy. Anybody could be out to get me. Anybody
Right.
could have a scam of some kind. And that's just not a very nice world to have to live in.
Right.
It's even worse to think that that's the kind of world that is now coming into idyllic Radnor Township and these environments. But it's part of the real world, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it's going to get worse.
Probably. I mean, I would think you're going to have more elderly with the baby boomers growing up.
Yes.
So,
More susceptible,
but
more vulnerable.
the other argument with that is, well, they're going to be more computer. They're going to know, well, this is a scam.
Yes.
Things like that. But with kids, yeah, I mean, there's going to be more kids.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Look, I grew up in the '90s. I got my first cell phone in like 1999 when I was in college. It was a flip phone. You didn't even text. 12 years later, we're walking around with handheld computers. What's going to happen another 12 years from now? Yeah. What kind of technology is going to be out there?
Do you see it coming to the point where the web will not be as ubiquitous? And what I mean is, if I'm really concerned about this, I will determine who will have access to my smartphone. Who can call me? Who can send me email messages? Who can text me? And I don't want to hear from anybody else.
Yeah, you can do that.
I know we can do that now.
Yeah.
But do you see that we might be heading in that direction?
I mean, that's
Closing, limiting.
that's tough, but I mean, that's going to
is.
make. How are you going to deal with business? I mean, what if
Well,
you're a
that's-
businessman?
yeah, that's
you got to
not
accept
a-
calls.
not a-
I got to accept calls.
It's not a practical solution.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I just think you got a guard on it. Like you touched on earlier with the small business being hacked. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
You know, that's a shame.
Mm-hmm. Well, he solved the problem. Well, I'm not sure he
With
solved
an
the problem.
insurance
but
policy?
he came up with an insurance policy specifically designed for small businesses up to $50,000. It's relatively inexpensive, and it covers you for, as I said, your business, your savings account, or your checking account. But it's got to be a business account, not a
Right.
personal account.
Well, most personal accounts would be
covered.
protected
Right.
either by the FDIC
Right.
or the Visa. And like I said, I think we talked earlier, then you get your money back.
Yeah.
Now it's the insurance companies becomes a
Right.
victim. They have certain thresholds they have to meet whether they'll even investigate it.
As part of the best defense being a good, strong offense, Does your department go into the schools? Do you have programs for children and parents?
We do. We actually have more planned for this upcoming school year, more with the chat stuff I was talking about. That'll be coming out. But we do. We work with the Radnor School District, parochial schools as well, with talking to them about what's going on, things like that. More on the kids' dangers of cyberbullying and the text messaging back and forth. Let's give you an example. You know, girlfriend, boyfriend sending pictures back and forth to each other. That's a digital image. It never goes away. Okay, so girl sends a picture of herself to the kid. They break up. He gives it to all his buddies. He'll give it to all their buddies. You're never getting it back. It's out there, and things like that. So that's more what we would talk to the schools about.
Do you think you get through?
Look, if you can,
they're still putting
if you get through to one, then you're doing something
I guess you're right.
Anyway.
Yeah, you've saved one.
But we've had cases of it.
Yeah.
You just got to be on top of it. You got to look through the phone. A lot of times they're sending them and deleting them.
Yeah. With the new school year about to crank up, I guess you're going to be very busy.
Yes. We have some things planned for early here.
And you seem to have as many problems at the collegiate level?
We do.
With all the colleges and universities we have in this area.
Yeah, we do. The same thing. They'll touch on both because they're doing some of the same stuff the kids are doing, and then they're getting compromised with their credit card stuff.
Yes.
So
the advice you would give to parents who may be watching the show, who have children or grandparents, is to do these 2 or 3 things. What would they be? What's at the top of the list? Prevention.
Be on top of your kids' phones, obviously. Tablets, laptops. Protect your passwords.
That means monitor them.
Monitor them closely.
See
what they're doing. I don't want to put a number on it, but weekly, check it out. If your kid's in their room for hours of the day on an iPad, what's he doing on the iPad? What's she doing on the iPad? Look at the text messages.
Now, from a legal standpoint, a parent has the right to do that, right?
Absolutely, until the person's 18. A lot of times the parents own the account. So technically, they own the phone. So yeah, there's from a legal standpoint, absolutely up until that person's 18.
Does a grandparent have a legal right to do that as well, or does
as long as the parents are fine with it? Yeah, I mean that's
as long as the parents are fine with it.
Right.
Okay. Granting permission is just that. Yes, I grant you permission to watch Johnny's.
Or if grandma finds something in Johnny's phone, what mom's not going to if it's something illicit or something like that. Or, absolutely. Any juvenile.
Okay. So parents and grandparents don't have to worry about charges being brought against them because they are surveilling their children.
Absolutely not.
And it's a form of harassment or any of the other nonsense that we read about from
so
time
if any
to time.
kid's watching the phone, it's mom and dad's rules till you're 18.
Yeah, good. So. Okay, so monitor as best you can what's going on. Are there controls? There are controls that a parent can put into a smartphone.
Right, there are apps, there's controls for the internet. You can't control who you're texting back and forth. So that's something that there's no parental control. Maybe you can block a number, but how do you know you're not going to meet some kid that you don't know about down the line? Controls on the web browsing part, but the actual the pictures back and forth, the messages, this Kick Messenger, which apparently is huge now, that we've just been made aware of it recently.
And that stuff is viral, right? Once it's out there.
It exists forever.
Yes.
It's a digital image that you can't get back.
But the bad stuff that is available to kids is viral. Once it's introduced into the web, it's out there.
Right.
You must run into parents who say, "Not my Johnny."
Absolutely.
My Johnny would never do that, and then are appalled, shocked, and in denial.
Right.
When you bring a situation to them and say, "Yeah, your son or daughter's been involved in this."
Right. Well, we have things where maybe it's deleted off the phone. Maybe the pictures, we have actually programs that will get that back, deleted images, and then here it is. But yeah, that's some.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a large.
Yeah, I understand.
But there are people like that.
Well, it is disconcerting. It really is disconcerting, and thank goodness you and people like you are on top of it, doing the best you can. But boy, it's an uphill fight. You have limited resources, and it's out there. Everybody's got it. If somebody wants to learn more or to get your help, they can go to the website, www.radnor.com.
Correct.
Or call you at the line 610-688-5606, extension 122.
Yes.
To repeat, that's 610-688-5606, extension 122.
Correct.
And you can chat with them about either prevention or a suspicion they may have.
Sure.
about for themselves or another family member.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having
coming.
me.
I'd like to believe someday we'll have another discussion and we can say, well, we're winning. The bad guys are losing, we're winning. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves. Take a look at what your kids are doing on their smartphones.